Well, we had a pretty good windstorm last night. Rain and wind, up to 60-mile-an-hour gusts. This thing stood up pretty well, but it did get a little bit wet inside. It dried out today, so definitely time to get this roof on. So next I'm going to go along here and measure out and space out all my truss hangers on both sides, and then see if I can get the trusses up here. Well, there's been some definite lessons to be learned with this build, and that's kind of why I decided to do a real small build at first. First of all, we don't have any power out here where we're at. It's like you got to drive up to the road, you know, where the first settlement was at, so about 300, 400 feet. So we've had to been hauling all the wood back to the saw, cut it, bring it back, make sure we got it right, then go cut all the rest of them. And so far that's worked out pretty good. You know, and that's why I didn't cut all of them at first. Like, for instance, for the studs and the headers and the footers and stuff for these walls and the plywood on the sheathing and everything, I didn't just measure what everything should have been and then just cut it all and bring it back here, because I didn't know if I had screwed up somewhere along the way and maybe something was a little bit different. So I just, like, we cut the header and the footer for one, put all the studs in there, make sure everything worked right, stand it up, you know, brace it, and then check it. Okay, that's good. And then same for the plywood, just kind of did it one wall at a time. I did the lower section on this wall, so I measured them all out, went up and cut them, checked them, put them up, they're good. So haven't really run into too many problems yet. I ran into one problem over here, and this is the only stud out of probably 40 or 50 that went on the wrong side of the line for this one. So it's like from the top to the bottom, it's about 1.5 inches off. So I just ended up putting some backing boards in there so that I could screw the plywood on, because the plywood on the outside missed that stud at the top. So that was the first fuck up, you know. The only other real one is right now with these trusses. Okay, I got all the measurements for this the trusses online on this website. It looked like it was somebody whose English was their second language, but most of the measurements, you know, looked right. So we cut the first set and laid it out, and it was a little bit different. So we had to make some modifications, but, well, we just kind of, you got to be able to roll with the punches on a job like this, because, you know, the individual building challenge of each individual project is always going to be different, and you got to constantly make sure before you make, you know, 100 trusses that one's going to work. So we got the one made and put out a template and made all the rest of them and everything. And unfortunately failed to get the measurements right. So instead of this bottom, the bottom cord member here being a full 145 inches, which makes it good for this 12-foot building, because it would actually overhang and sit right on there, and I would be able to use these joist hangers. But for some reason we cut them all at 141 inches. Now I'm not going to be able to actually use these truss hangers, because the width of my plywood gussets isn't going to fit in this. It's only a 2-inch hanger. So this would actually be right down here where it's supposed to be. If we would have cut the boards long enough, it would have been on a flat spot like this, and it would work just fine. So now I have trusses that will, when you try to set them down on the wall's actually going to be hitting on this right here. So I'm going to have to make do with that and notch these out like this, so that I'll be able to set them on top of the wall, because my header for my wall is going to be about right there. So, you know, luckily I'll be able to take these $20 worth of truss hangers back, but it's just, you know, you just got to take it one step at a time and modify your plan and always be flexible. So now I'm going to have to pack up all 9 of these trusses and take them to the front, cut them again, notch both sides of them, bring them back, and hope they work after that. So it's just a learning experience, you know. And as far as building a tiny house like this, or, you know, a little shed or something like that, especially the further you're away from power, the harder it is and the more precise you have to be. But it's always something to just check yourself every step of the way and make sure that you are going to be able to work with it. And if something's amiss, then you got to modify your plans to suit that. So I came out here today prepared for these rafter ties not to work. But after examining the situation a little bit closer, they just might work. Now today, This is probably not a recommended safety procedure, but my girlfriend's working and my brother's still in Arkansas, so I'm going to go ahead and try to pop this truss up here and just see if it's even going to work. Well, unfortunately, as I suspected, these rafter ties are not going to work because the way they come up here, they're hitting the plywood gussets. So I'm going to have to take these down, and I'm going to use these, which are actually truss ties, or at least that's what they were sold as, and those will go on top of the header and screw right there. So I'm going to take one of these down, one set of them anyways, and put these new ones up and see if I can get it to work that way. Now, this might be a little useful tip for somebody, but I'm out here working alone today, so because I moved these joist hangers here, they had a slot where you could just put the truss right in there, no problem. But since that's gone, I put a couple blocks up here so I can set the truss right down in there, and that should be good. I got the new type of truss hanger set up now on both sides. Okay, so now comes the retry. Put the truss back up there. All right, it worked. Now I'm going to try to get that sun gun toenailed and screwed in on the sides here, and since that's going to work, we'll go ahead and go with that for the rest of them. Go ahead and notch them all and start popping them up there. Next, what I'm doing, because I notched these a little bit extra to allow for some leeway, I'm measuring the overhang there. So from this end to this inside end, on this side I've got 9 3/4 inches. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting one screw in this truss tie here, and now I'm going to go over to the other side, measure the same thing, and try to get them even so that my overhang is the same on both sides. Okay, turns out these truss hangers are pretty tricky to do by yourself, but I got the gap on both ends the same. As far as the overhang goes, they are both exactly 9 7/8. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to toenail in both sides of this with some 3.5-inch nails and get this thing to where, see right now, it's kind of floppy. So I'm going to try to tighten it up as much as I can with the toenails, and then after I get a couple more up, I can tie them together and they'll be more secure. First truss is put up there. Now I think today it's starting to get dark, so these son of guns don't blow over tonight if it gets windy. I'm going to go ahead and go take 3 more up to the front and notch them, and then I'll come back here and hang those up and then tie them all together so they can't blow over. Well, decided to go ahead and spend the money to get a 10-foot ladder, so it's a little bit safer out here right now, and I got my brother out here helping me. I was only able to get 2 of those trusses up the other day by myself, but pretty much got a system down. So now me and him are I got them all notched and just hanging them one by one. Ended up using these truss hangers differently, because first I was putting the truss hanger on the bottom like that. Now I'm putting them like that, so that helps me lining them up, and it's probably a little bit more sturdy too that way. So just gonna go ahead and slap the rest of these slapjackers up here, get them all braced together, and next project will be putting the roof on. Well, we got all 9 of the trusses put up. Starting to look more like a little building here. with a roof on it. So tomorrow, there's a storm coming in right now, so I'm not really too worried about this stuff getting wet in here, because we'll have the roof on here in a day or two, so it's not going to get wet that many times. Tomorrow we're going to come and start slapping on the roofing. And here's what it looks like from the outside at this point. Looking pretty good in my opinion. The only thing is some of these truss overhangs were a little bit off. See how they kind of go like this and that. So when we put the fascia board on there and the little soffit board and stuff that we're going to do, we'll be able to cover it up, no problem. 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch there. Up until this point, we really haven't had too many of those kind of gaps, so you know, a little bit here and there is tolerable.